This man had clearly already been driven to the brink of despair. But just before dying, he suddenly smiled. Because everyone thought this was a game doomed to end in death. But only he knew that so-called death was merely the first step in truly beginning his revenge. The next second, time began to rewind, and fate was completely rewritten. When he opened his eyes again, he had returned to before all the disasters happened. It turned out that one day, mysterious gates had suddenly appeared all over the world. Countless monsters poured out from the gates, sweeping across the globe. Many humans also received the prompt of awakening. Those humans who successfully awakened in the end, with the help of the power of constellations, saved the world and established the 7 great families. Their power all came from the blessing of a certain constellation in the starry sky. And this man was the first person in the world to become a 9-star hunter. Most unbelievably, he had not received the blessing of any constellation. And precisely because of that, he completely became a thorn in the side of the 7 great families. So one day, the city where he lived suffered a devastating blow. Countless humans died in this purge. The man clenched the pocket watch in his hand tightly. He never expected that the Romanov family would actually make a move against him. What he had not expected even more was that the one sent by the Romanov family was Dmitri, who was also a 9-star. Dmitri was the incarnation of the constellation Odin among humans, and was also known as the King of Magic. At this moment, Dmitri looked at the man with pity. A human who could reach 9-star without relying on a constellation, yet in the end dies by my hand. The man gritted his teeth and said, "Why do you insist on killing me? Is it because I refused to join the 7 great families, or because I did not receive a constellation's blessing?" Dmitri chuckled softly. "Both. At first, the 7 great families did not plan to touch you, but the constellations frantically ordered us. You had to be erased. Because if someone could reach 9-star without needing a constellation, the authority of the constellations would collapse." "You mean, my existence made the constellations feel threatened, so they want to get rid of me? You are also the world's first necromancer. You control the dead, which has already violated the rules established by the constellations. In the eyes of the constellations, the power of death is the symbol of evil, which is why they kept issuing orders for your extermination. This ends here." The man stared at Dmitri, his tone very slow, yet even colder. "Do you know why I kept dragging this out until now? Because my spell is finally ready. Next, I'll show you the true power of a necromancer." As soon as the words fell, the withered bones all around seemed to be awakened by some kind of will. The entire space was instantly swallowed by the aura of death. He drained his magic power dry and unfolded an endless domain of death. Dmitri was slightly stunned. "I didn't expect you could still erupt with this kind of power now. Then I'll also let you witness my strongest magic." Dmitri chanted in a low voice, "Honorable King Odin, please grant me the power to slay the Lord of the Undead." Seeing this, the man's pupils suddenly contracted. "You're going to use Odin's eye? The domain of death can't stop it at all." The next moment, the night sky was torn open by the scarlet Odin's eye, like a god overlooking the earth. Odin's eye bombarded the ground indiscriminately. The domain of death instantly collapsed, and the attack shot straight toward the man like a meteor. The man, who should have panicked, instead revealed a smug smile at this moment. Dmitri's heart sank. Something's wrong. Why can he still smile? The man immediately raised the pocket watch in his hand, and in an instant, the pocket watch devoured the power of Odin's eye. A prompt sounded in the man's mind. The divine artifact Chronos pocket watch has met the conditions. Upon absorbing the power of one constellation, the power of return can be activated, and Hunter Ryoga will return to the past. The next moment, the pocket watch burst out with blinding light. Time began to reverse, and Ryoga's smile deepened. Chronos had to absorb the power of a constellation to activate, but I have no constellation blessing at all. So I could only borrow your power of Odin, Dmitri. At this moment, Dmitri had no idea what was happening and could only roar in anger. "Ryoga, what exactly did you do?" What answered him was Ryoga's icy mockery. "Next time, I will completely destroy all 7 of your great families." And at that very moment, Chronos' hand suddenly stopped. Ryoga's figure began to turn transparent. At this moment, Ryoga suddenly woke up from the bed. "I really came back, although there was an element of gambling in it. The result was exactly as I thought. Damn those 7 great families, they actually joined forces to hunt me down for such an absurd reason." He looked at the pocket watch in his hand, and the prompt showed, "Chronos has been damaged, because only one identical item can exist in the same spacetime. I had possessed it for so long and clearly knew how to use it, yet because I had no constellation power, I had never truly used it even once. And it was precisely thanks to this divine artifact that I survived." The point in time he chose to return to was the very day the awakening system appeared. Looking at the system panel before him, he could choose a class suitable for himself. Because he had returned to the past, all his stats had also returned to their initial state. But his trait was the same as in his previous life, able to resist all mental attacks. There were currently 3 classes available: warrior, mage, and priest. He stared at the class options. There was no need to rush the decision now. What mattered most now was to use the intelligence from his previous life to make himself grow as fast as possible. A moment later, at the hunter market. What item would you like to buy? We have longswords made by top companies here, as well as all kinds of equipment crafted from elf branches. Ryoga said, I want to buy a Sirang cursed ring. Hearing this, the woman froze. You mean, you want to buy a cursed ring? That ring carries hundreds of curses, and anyone who wears it will lose their sanity. Ryoga's tone did not change. I want it. In the end, he spent 2 million to buy it. At first, the clerk sternly warned the man, once this ring is sold, we will not bear any after-sales responsibility. But Ryoga did not even blink and paid directly. This ring was covered in rust and looked just like a broken ring. Its attributes showed no benefit whatsoever, and it would even make the wearer suffer terrible curses. But only Ryoga knew its true use, and he raised his hand and put on the ring. The next moment, the power of the curse began to emerge. Just as Ryoga had expected, the knowledge of the necromancer was all sealed inside the ring, and as long as he endured it, he could obtain it. Immediately after, Ryoga was dragged into darkness, and he vigilantly swept his gaze around. It turned out that this time the curse had manifested as Dimitri. Dimitri's voice echoed by the man's ear. You have no constellation power, and you still want to defeat me? The power of the constellation transformed into an attack and suddenly erupted. Ryoga stood where he was, motionless. He smiled faintly, so it was only an illusion. The next moment, the attack stopped in front of the man, unable to advance even an inch. Prompt, you have passed the trial of the Ring of Darkness. The power of the necromancer has awakened from within the ring. Immediately after, a horrifying undead aura wrapped around Ryoga. System prompt. You have completed the trial of the Ring of Darkness. Necromancer mana has awakened. The next moment, the man was forcibly pulled back to reality. Without hesitation, he directly clicked Necromancer in the class selection. System prompt. Obtained exclusive Necromancer skills. Obtained Death Guidance. Attribute points can be freely converted, and spells can be cast using attribute conversion as a medium. Obtain Death Guide. When casting or maintaining summoning magic, mana consumption is reduced by 20%. These two were both passive skills, and at present there were only 2 active skills he could use. Skill 1, Summon Undead. Skill 2, Manipulate the bones of summoned undead. Although his mind held a large amount of necromancer experience from his previous life, his current stats had already returned to 1 star. If he wanted to defeat Dimitri, he had to walk a path different from the one in his previous life. I also have to obtain a Guardian Star, so that I can push my power 1 step further. Not long after, Ryoga boarded a plane headed for the temple. The Temple of Kronos. This was a ruin where the gods had once fought. According to the memory of his previous life, this ruined site was far from as simple as it looked on the surface. The Kronos pocket watch had another use. It was the key to opening a time passage, and this seemingly ordinary stone platform was the entrance to that passage. The moment the two made contact, the Kronos pocket watch shone again. The originally dilapidated ruin was gradually restored by the power of time and space. In the blink of an eye, Ryoga seemed to pass through time and return to a much more distant past. This was the ruin hidden within the rift of time and space. And at that moment, a voice sounded by his ear. Who are you? A gigantic god appeared before Ryoga. Seeing this, Ryoga did not panic. Everything was exactly as he had expected. It is an honor to meet you, noble lord of the gods, Kronos. Hearing this, Kronos was first stunned, then looked at Ryoga, his gaze falling on the pocket watch in his hand. I just sensed time and space reversing. It seems that it was you, little one, who turned time back. As you can see, I used your divine artifact. Even holding my divine artifact, making time reverse is nearly impossible. Little one, you must have been very strong before. Kronos was the lord of the gods and also the father of Zeus, king of the gods. But he was defeated in his struggle against Olympus and was gradually forgotten by humanity. Kronos, once the lord of the gods, don't you want revenge? If you are willing to become my guardian star, then I can help you take revenge. Weak human, without even Olympic divine power, you actually want to command me? Even without a constellation's blessing, I was still able to reach 9-star. That means I am qualified to discuss cooperation with you. Besides, Zeus, the object of your revenge, is also on my target list. Zeus betrayed his own father at the time of your final battle. You must also want to make him regret it. Right now, Earth is controlled by the 7 great constellations, and the 7 great families are merely their agents among humanity. What's more, you are still the god of destruction of legend. The path I pursue is death, and the power of the undead is highly compatible with your power. The god Kronos governs harvest and time. The sickle is both a symbol of harvest and likewise represents death. Hearing this, Kronos flew into a rage. Human, are you forcibly tying human death to my doctrine? I am only saying that our interests are aligned, and what I believe in is also death. If you truly do not want revenge and are willing to remain forever suppressed by the other constellations, then I have nothing more to say. Hearing this, Kronos stared fixedly at the man. Ryoga's heartbeat quickened. If he could not obtain Kronos' help, he could only think of another path. The next moment, however, Kronos laughed out loud. "You pass. I was only doing a small test to confirm whether you truly wanted revenge against the other constellations. I will become your guardian star. Together, we will take revenge on those constellations." The next second, Ryoga's whole body trembled as a scorching power forcefully surged into him. The scene changed, and the man left the temple. Kronos' eyes were full of shock. After all these years, the outside world had actually become like this. "Now that I have followed you out of the temple, my constellation in the pantheon will also slowly reappear. Although the constellation will gradually manifest, humanity no longer has any believers of mine. Little one, you must help me expand my influence bit by bit. Likewise, your power will also rise along with it. You must make the name Kronos resound across the entire earth once again." At this moment, Ryoga could not help opening the class window. Though he was clearly a necromancer, he had gained a bonus to holy mana. And because of Kronos' special nature, his holy magic power and death magic power could be freely converted. And he could even use holy attribute equipment as well. At the same time, he also obtained a skill called Life Drain, which could heal himself or strengthen his physique. Ryoga had not expected that he could freely switch between holy magic power and undead magic power. Everything was ready, and next, it was time to test his power. The ancient garden dungeon was the most suitable testing ground. Afterward, Ryoga arrived at the portal in the center of the city. He looked around, and saw quite a few novice hunters gathered nearby, hoping to form teams. In the moment Ryoga was distracted, someone beside him spoke up and asked whether he wanted to join their party. Ryoga said flatly, "For a low-level dungeon like this, I don't need to go in with anyone." Seeing this, the man gave an awkward smile, turned around, and stepped back. Looking at Ryoga not far away, he could not help whispering, "He looks like a complete beginner. Can he really handle going in alone?" The girl curled her lips. "Brother, he didn't join our team, so stop worrying about him." Ryoga smiled faintly. "Let's begin." Although the ancient garden dungeon was only 1 star, its map was absurdly large, and monsters seemed to hide in every shadow. In the grass not far away, a monster holding a long sword quietly crept up behind the man. Ryoga caught the killing intent from the side. He had not expected it to come so quickly. The next moment, the monster suddenly launched a sneak attack from behind. Moving extremely fast, with only one goal, kill in one strike. Ryoga heard the wind behind him, and merely tilted his body slightly, dodging aside while backhandedly grabbing that goblin. "I'll use you as the first test of my skill." The skill White Knight activated, converting undead mana into holy mana for release. After completing the attribute conversion, he immediately followed up with the holy spell Life Drain, and the goblin's life force rapidly drained away. Ryoga's brows twitched. Life drain driven by holy mana was actually this fast. Then he switched back to undead mana and absorbed again. Ryoga could feel that his body had undergone a faint strengthening, almost too slight to notice. System prompt: you have absorbed the life force of a sprite, and your basic attributes have been enhanced. Strength increased by 0.1, agility increased by 0.1. If I keep hunting monsters, can I forcibly stack my attributes up this way? Are you surprised by the effect of the skill? This is the advantage I bring you. Ryoga truly had not expected that attributes could be raised like this. Now let's try the other skill. I hope it won't disappoint me. Rise and fight for me, Necromancer Summoning. The moment the skill fell, the goblin that had just died suddenly stood up. System prompt: Undead Goblin has been awakened, attributes increased by 97%. Goblin type: Zombie, race: Undead. With summons, things will be much easier for me. Next comes the real dungeon raid. Just then, several more goblins emerged from the woods not far away. Perfect. I still wanted to test the combat strength of my summons, and you came at just the right time. The next moment, the undead goblin charged forward. Having no technique at all, only instinct, as it opened its mouth and bit the enemy viciously. The bitten goblin froze for a moment, as if wondering, why is one of my own kind attacking me? Another goblin thrust fiercely, directly piercing the undead goblin's heart. But undead creatures have no vital point. Even when a fatal area is pierced, they are still hard to kill completely. Ryoga casually grabbed one of the goblins. These are all walking attribute points. I won't let a single one get away. Then he casually threw the drained goblin onto the ground. The undead goblin behind him also finished off the last monster. If I can absorb attributes from living things, then what about corpses? Can I still absorb them? The next second, the man's eyes lit up. Sure enough, it works on corpses too. In that case, let's speed things up. For a necromancer, as long as one monster was killed, it meant half the work was already done. With his current mental control, he could stably command at most 20 undead in battle. The next moment, he said softly, Necromancer Summoning. The goblins that had originally fallen all stood up one after another. The summoned goblins felt no fatigue and were standard combat tools, not to mention the 97% attribute boost. Necromancer really is one of the strongest classes. Then he gave the order, Kill every hostile creature around them without discrimination. A large number of goblins instantly descended into chaotic melee. In only a short while, all 20 undead goblins came under his control. With this undead army farming experience for him, the efficiency was practically overwhelming. The living goblins were so frightened that they scattered and fled in all directions. It was at that moment that a whisper came from not far away. Rocket spell, fire. The goblin that was fleeing was instantly blasted to death. Ryoga looked toward the source of the voice, his tone icy. Come out. We weren't following you. We just happened to run into you. As they spoke, the more Ryoga looked at them, the more familiar they seemed. He suddenly remembered. They were the twin shadow archers. He had already felt something was off outside the gate earlier. In the future, they once accepted a mission to assassinate me. Kronos asked in confusion, would fighting them be troublesome? Ryoga smiled faintly. Right now, they're only 1 star too. And I remember they were always a brother and sister duo. Then eliminating future enemies in advance is the right choice. Ryoga replied, no need. We have no grudge. In my previous life, they were only taking a job. Just then, the man asked, these servants, are they all under your control? The necromancer class was still a secret at the moment and would not be recognized by the public for some time. That's right. These undead servants are all under my control. It's true that I can clear the dungeon faster alone, but collecting these materials requires manpower. Every dead goblin has a crystal inside its body, and those can be taken outside and exchanged for money. Then Ryoga said, are you willing to cooperate with me? The man frowned. How? I'll be responsible for killing all the enemies, and you'll be responsible for picking up the crystals in the rear. The total crystals will be divided in a 5-to-2 ratio. Hearing this, the 3 of them discussed it quietly. They had never seen anyone who could control monsters, and instinctively doubted Ryoga's credibility. After a long while, even Ryoga had not expected that a small allocation issue could drag on for so long. If my servants could pick up crystals, I wouldn't need to cooperate with you at all. It was then that the man spoke up. I agree. But I think it should be split 50-50. There are 3 of us, and even with 50-50, each person wouldn't get that much. The most I can accept is 70-30. If you don't agree, then that's the end of it. Boss, are you really going to cooperate with him? He doesn't mean us any harm. If he wanted to make a move, we'd already be dead. I think following him will earn us more than farming on our own. A moment later, the man cried out in collapse, let me rest for a bit. It's my first time realizing that picking up crystals can make my hands go numb. I knew we'd make money, but this is way too ridiculous. Who exactly is this man? What he's showing completely shatters my understanding of hunters. Stop spacing out. There's still a huge pile of crystals here. The man smiled awkwardly. Can't you let us rest for a while? You can. Rest, but don't stop for too long. Everyone's impression of Ryoga could be summed up in one sentence. This guy absolutely did not seem like an ordinary human. The speed at which we pick up crystals actually can't keep up with the speed at which he kills monsters. The surrounding monsters had almost been completely wiped out, so it was time to look at the improvement in his attributes. In only 3 hours, Ryoga's attributes had already increased by 21.2 points. His current status panel was already comparable to that of an ordinary level 4 player. That's about enough. It's time to go clear the Lord. Then he walked toward the depths of the forest. Before long, he saw the Lord sitting on its seat, while the guards around it stared fixedly at Ryoga. The Lord muttered in a low voice. It had been a very long time since any human had dared challenge it. Ryoga even laughed out loud. A mere goblin dared call itself the ruler of this dungeon? The girl explained from the side. It was the Lord of this region and also the nightmare all beginners acknowledged. Sensing Ryoga's contempt, the Lord roared, "Seize him." The instant the words fell, a large number of goblins charged at the man. In Ryoga's eyes, even a lord was nothing more than a bigger goblin. Go tear them apart, my servants. As the order fell, the undead also rushed forward at once. The goblin horde instantly descended into a chaotic battle. The difference in numbers was too great, and the undead servants were quickly torn apart starting from the head. At the same time, the system prompted, the number of servants has decreased by 1. Ryoga was not surprised at all and only said softly, "Rise, my servant." The fallen corpse stood up again and once more turned into undead. Everyone felt their scalps go numb. He could actually awaken corpses on the spot and turn them into slaves. The battle situation changed abruptly, and even the Lord could not help standing up, waving the staff in its hand while chanting rapidly. The next moment, one staff after another was planted into the ground. This was the Goblin Lord Shaman's ability, Badge of Honor, wildly inspiring the surrounding goblins. At once, the goblins' eyes turned red, as if they had completely lost all sense of pain. Ryoga smiled faintly. A low-level buff like this is meaningless. The totems on the ground were also destroyed at the same time. The Goblin Lord Shaman flew into a rage. A mere human dares destroy my totems? Next I'll show you true despair. This staff was forged from the resentment of hundreds of goblins. Group Berserk, activate. In an instant, all the surviving goblins threw back their heads and roared. System prompt. Goblins' strength, agility, and all other attributes have increased by 50%. The goblins knew no fatigue, feared no pain, and frantically wore down Ryoga's servants. Because their numbers were simply too great, the servants were eventually exhausted one by one through sheer numbers. But Ryoga did not panic and only said with mild surprise, "So this is your trump card? Then next, it's my turn. What you think is a trump card is just a joke in my eyes." Necromantic power slowly condensed in his palm, and Ryoga shouted in a low voice, "Bone control." The skull staff in the shaman lord's hand suddenly shook violently, as if it were about to fly out of its grip, and the next moment, it shot through the air directly, landing squarely in Ryoga's hand. The shaman screamed, "What did you do? Give me back my staff." All objects made of bone were under Ryoga's control. After examining it, he found that the resentment inside the staff was deeper than he had expected. It seems you use goblins as sacrifices to forge this staff, and their hatred toward you is no small thing either. Since this staff belongs to you, then I'll return it to you. As soon as he finished speaking, the skull staff instantly flew back in reverse. The shaman was horrified, because it discovered that the staff no longer obeyed it at all. In the instant it lost focus, the staff directly pierced through its body. Until its death, the shaman lord could not believe that it would die by the weapon it was most proud of, and then it fell heavily to the ground. Ryoga only smiled faintly. How stupid. The gains from this raid were higher than expected, and his attributes had risen by another large amount. But the other three wore pained expressions. Earlier, when Ryoga fought the Lord, he had killed far too many monsters, and all the cleanup and collection work had fallen on them. When the four of them left the dungeon, they immediately became the focus of everyone's attention, because the number of magic stones on Ryoga's back was absurd. Ryoga said that these magic stones could be sold directly in a shop in exchange for cash. If you're not in a hurry to use money, you can also transport them to the central city to sell, so that you won't lose a cut to middlemen. How much do you think they can sell for? The man thought for a moment. Probably around 5 million. As he spoke, Ryoga took the skull staff off his back. This thing had almost no market value, and even if it were taken elsewhere, it would still be difficult to sell. The staff was filled with a heart-palpitating curse. It could increase mental power, but it would erode the owner's mind. And even more fatally, the required class to equip it was priest, while priests were inherently weaker at resisting abnormal conditions. But a curse of this level is no threat to me at all. So I'll keep this item. We can settle the cost after you finish selling the magic stones. How could we still take money? This time, by cooperating with you. We've already earned what we normally make in an entire year. Just hand this item directly to Mr. Ryoga. I don't think anyone has any objections. Seeing this, Ryoga was even more satisfied with the way this captain handled things. Good. Then I won't stand on ceremony. We'll continue cooperating tomorrow. The next day, in the ancient garden dungeon. Ryoga, we really can't keep going. There are too many monsters, and we can't keep up with them. To keep our packs from bursting, we specifically brought 3 backpacks. But today they're filling up even faster than yesterday. In that case, you should take the magic stones back to town first. Kronos asked in confusion, "Why are you deliberately sending them back?" "Because what I'm about to do next is something I don't want anyone to know about." Then he walked alone toward the depths of the dungeon. The dungeon did not contain only goblins. The deeper he went, the more the regions changed, and the monsters changed with them. Fishmen suddenly attacked, and Ryoga did not hesitate, directly ordering his servants to engage them. It was obvious that the fishmen's stats were significantly higher than the goblins. Before long, large numbers of servants were torn apart by the fishmen. But precisely because the servants felt neither pain nor fear of death, some fishmen were still dragged down in the melee. Ryoga seized the opportunity and raised his hand, preparing to summon those dead fishmen. A moment later, groups of fishmen were awakened and all became his slaves. With the fishmen serving as vanguards, he felt much more confident about the road ahead. In the ancient hall deep within the dungeon. This ancient hall seemed to have been forgotten for a very long time, even the air carried dust. "Ryoga, what exactly are you trying to do?" "You'll know in a moment." He took out a dark green heart, the heart of a fishman, then took out the blood left from killing the shaman earlier and dripped it onto the heart. The next moment, the heart suddenly trembled. That dead heart seemed to come back to life and began beating rapidly. System prompt: you have successfully triggered the secret of the ancient garden. The ancient trial ground is opening. The next second, he was teleported into an arena. In his previous life, he had also only learned the secret of this place by chance. But in his previous life, his star level had already been too high, and he had long since lost the qualification to enter a 1-star dungeon again. Ryoga really wanted to know what exactly this trial was. The curtain of light split open, and a dark purple giant claw stepped out. Ryoga's expression gradually darkened. A 1-star trial? Why would it spawn a draconian? System prompt: endure for 10 minutes against the draconian, and you will receive a reward. The trial ground had been created by constellation gods, and its purpose was to select outstanding agents. Kronos could not help speaking up. With your current power, lasting even 10 seconds will be difficult. Looks like I'll have to wait another few hundred years for the next agent. If I remember correctly, this is a 1-star dungeon, so the Draconian's power will also be suppressed to 1 star. But even a 1-star Draconian is not something an ordinary person can withstand. Next, I only need to do one thing: stall for time. All servants, prepare to attack. As soon as his words fell, the Draconian stomped the ground, making the arena tremble. The next moment, the Draconian's figure vanished from where it stood. When it reappeared, it was already right in front of him. At the same time, the fishman servants charged up, clinging tightly to the Draconian's shoulders and torso, trying to pin it in place. Logically, the Draconian should have been held back for a few seconds, but it merely showed disdain. Its right fist slammed down. With one punch, it directly killed a fishman. In less than a minute, it had wiped out all the fishmen that had surrounded it. Not only was Ryoga not shocked, his eyes actually lit up. Because fishmen were naturally poisonous, and after being turned into undead, their poison became even stronger. It didn't matter if the Draconian killed quickly, as long as it got poisoned, its speed would drop. After clearing out the fishmen, the Draconian immediately charged toward Ryoga. In its eyes, Ryoga was the designated main target. Ryoga raised his magic staff and immediately poured mana into it. The staff's defense was forcibly raised. A protective screen of light appeared in front of him. Even with the staff's enhancement, fully blocking the Draconian was still unrealistic. At the instant the Draconian struck the screen of light, Ryoga detonated the barrier with a backhand motion. Taking advantage of the Draconian's half-second of distraction, Ryoga forcibly drove the staff with bone control and counter-thrust at the Draconian. The staff came with fierce force, but it only cut a wound on the back of the Draconian's hand. As the Draconian roared, the remaining fishmen pounced on it again, tearing at its body desperately, trying to deepen and spread the poison. Sure enough, the Draconian's movements began to slow. Its nerves seemed numbed, and its body became briefly stiff. As a member of the Draconian race, it would not allow itself to fall like this, and forced itself to keep throwing punches. One fishman after another was smashed apart, but the violent movement only made the poison spread faster, and the Draconian finally dropped heavily to its knees. Ryoga felt secretly relieved. Fortunately, this was a 1-star dungeon. He withdrew the staff. If the dungeon rank had been even a little higher, he would never have been able to suppress this monster. Immediately after, he walked to the kneeling Draconian, raised his hand, and said softly, "Life Drain, activate." At the same time, the system prompted, "Mission complete, reward will now be issued. Skill, Crown of Tenacity. Mental type damage reduced by 40%, while also accelerating mana circulation and improving concentration." This was a passive skill, and when facing control effects, he could shorten more than half their duration. And the body of the Draconian race was itself top-tier material. He stored the Draconian's corpse inside the ring. What are you planning to do with the Draconian corpse? Of course, make it into the most perfect combat tool. But to fully squeeze every bit of value out of the Draconian corpse, he needed an alchemist. Afterward, Ryoga arrived in Ishikawa Prefecture. According to the memory from my previous life, he should be living here. This place is exactly the same as in my memory, without any changes at all. Suddenly, an explosion sounded. Ryoga smiled helplessly. Even this hadn't changed. A figure walked out of the smoke and dust. Ryoga smiled. As expected, it was him. This disheveled man was called Renya, and in the future, he would become the greatest alchemist on the entire continent. "Renya, do you have time right now?" Renya frowned. "I have time, but who are you?" "My name is Ryoga. I came here because I want to borrow your alchemy tools." "Borrow my tools? Why should I lend them to you?" "Renya, don't be so stingy. Lend me the tools, and I'll give you something of equal value in return. You're researching a regeneration potion, but you've hit a bottleneck, right?" Renya's expression changed drastically. "How do you know what I'm working on?" Ryoga continued, "Relax, I can help you make it." A moment later, Renya still could not believe it. "A problem that's troubled me for more than half a year was solved just like that? The finished product is already done, but you definitely want to see its effect with your own eyes." Ryoga cut a small wound on the back of his hand, then poured the potion onto it. A sizzling sound rang out, and the wound instantly healed. Renya's eyes lit up as if they were burning. Ryoga said calmly, "You want the real formula, right? As long as you cooperate with me, I can give it to you for free. I won't exploit you. The terms of cooperation and profit sharing can all be discussed. For you, there's no downside to this. You can think it over slowly." After saying that, he raised his hand and released the Draconian corpse. Even in death, that pressure still felt like a heavy weight pressing on the chest. Renya was shocked. "What exactly is that thing?" "I'm a necromancer, and I want to turn it into a servant. If you're interested in it, come over and help me." Renya said coldly, "I haven't agreed to cooperate yet, so why should I help you?" "I'm not helping you. I'm just interested in rare creatures." Even as he said that, he still walked over. Kronos asked in confusion, "Why is your friend so cautious?" "Because he was betrayed by a company before. Back then, Renya made a major breakthrough at the biggest company in the country. only to have his credit stolen by his superior in the end. Renya, if you don't want to cooperate because you think I lack strength, then I'll prove it to you. This is a level 5 magic stone. First control the melting degree to 42%, then fuse the magic stone with the necromancer's curse power. After that, carve the curse into the draconian corpse. Finally, we still need an ancient dragon heart as the core. Then he called his team and asked them to look for an ancient dragon heart. The next day, at the borderline. Ryoga, our team has been waiting for you for a long time. I'm curious, why did you come to a dangerous place like the border this time? Ever since the border dungeon collapsed, this place has been full of monsters. I came here only to meet an old acquaintance. According to Ryoga's memories, the direction could not be wrong. Suddenly, the sound of heavy footsteps rang out, and a giant orc holding a spear suddenly lunged out in a sneak attack. On the other side, Ryoga had already been prepared. Before the orc could even throw its spear, the bone weapon he carried with him pierced through it first. He had intended to directly strike through its vital point, but unexpectedly, the orc shifted away at the last moment and avoided the critical spot. The orc roared in pain and viciously pulled the bone spike from its chest, then charged madly toward Ryoga, raising its hand to tear him to pieces. Ryoga's gaze darkened, and he said softly, "Bone control." The next moment, undead power wrapped around the giant orc. In the blink of an eye, the orc was pierced through by the bones inside its own body. The captain stared in a daze. Ryoga could actually control the orc's bones and make it kill itself. It's nothing unusual. Keep hunting. The fallen orc was soon awakened again by necromancer summoning. According to Ryoga's memory, farther ahead was the orc fortress. That was his true destination. Then he told everyone that the next target was the orc camp. Hearing that, everyone was both excited and uneasy. Could the orc camp really be cleared this smoothly? They continued advancing toward the camp, and every orc they encountered on the way was handled with ease. Ryoga glanced at the sky and saw that evening was already approaching, so they could only rest in place for the night. When he turned his head, the team had already even set up tents. They were absurdly relaxed. Late at night, Ryoga thought things over again and again. His level had already reached 16, and he was now qualified to unlock part of the necromancer spells. Then he sank his consciousness into the ring's knowledge space. Restricted by the system, many high-level sorceries were still beyond his reach. What he could see were all basic spells that in his previous life he would not even have bothered with. But then he reconsidered. The things he had looked down on in his previous life were now the most practical. After all, when he became a necromancer in his previous life, he had started at 7-star and never studied low-tier spells at all. As his study deepened, system prompt, you have learned a new skill. Early the next morning, the team members woke up groggily. But the moment they opened their eyes, what they saw was a gigantic orc, its whole body covered in bone armor. The man jumped in fright and screamed, "What the hell is that?" Ryoga smiled. "An orc I just finished modifying. I call them armored orcs." This was a new skill Ryoga had obtained, one that could turn bones into armor for protection. "Since you're all awake, let's move out and head for the orc camp." A short while later, everyone saw the orc camp. The camp was even bigger than Ryoga had expected. The sentry orcs immediately rang the alarm bell and roared that there were enemies attacking. The next second, groups of orcs poured out of the camp. The orcs were even more vigilant than expected, so Ryoga immediately activated bone control. The bone weapons he had prepared in advance whistled through the air. The orcs charging in front dropped on the spot. Ryoga said in a low voice, "I hate noise the most." As soon as he said that, the orc chief also walked out from the camp and let out a sky-shaking roar. The camp's orcs immediately formed ranks and drew their bows, aiming all their arrows forward and preparing for a volley. The captain rushed to the front and directly activated his class defense skill. "I didn't expect orcs to know coordination." The girl also raised her hand and knocked an arrow, and dozens of arrows instantly rained out, targeting the charging orc horde. Ryoga stood where he was and said flatly, as expected of the future twin shadow archers. Then he ordered all his servants to charge. For a time, the area in front of the camp turned into a slaughterhouse, with orcs and undead tangled in chaotic battle. And Ryoga had only one target, the orc chief. The orc chief sensed Ryoga approaching and fixed its eyes on him, raising its giant axe and chopping down head-on. Ryoga's expression did not change. He said softly, "Bone control." Countless bones wrapped in undead power blasted toward the orc chief. Countless bones wrapped in undead power blasted toward the orc chief, and the attack struck the chief without leaving any gaps. The chief roared in pain and raised its hand, trying to forcibly pull the bone spikes out. Ryoga knew very well. He had to kill the chief in one burst, or once it entered berserk mode, it would become even harder to deal with. The chief still tried to struggle, but the bones inside its body were forcibly twisted and shattered by Ryoga, and in the end it could only fall backward weakly and crash heavily to the ground. Though the battle had looked easy, Ryoga's body was already nearing its limit. In a short time, more than half his mana had been consumed, so he immediately activated Life Drain. After a brief moment of life drain, his condition recovered by more than half. And just then, low whimpering growls came from behind him. With the chief dead, the orcs' morale collapsed, and they began fleeing in all directions. But in Ryoga's eyes, they were all running attribute points. There was no way he would let them escape. Before long, he had wiped out all the remaining orcs. The team stood there dumbfounded. The chief had died too quickly, and the magic stones on the ground had piled up everywhere. But what Ryoga cared about was not the magic stones, but the giant axe the chief had wielded at the start. That blood axe was the real treasure. Judging from its attributes, the more monsters it killed, the stronger its own power became. Ryoga handed the spoils to the team to deal with, while he went to do something more important. Clearing out the orcs had only been an appetizer. His real target was this tree. Stop hiding and come out. The withered tree gave no response at all. Still pretending? If you don't come out now, I'll destroy this tree directly. As soon as the words fell, the dead tree suddenly erupted with a powerful presence. A shadowy figure said coldly, "Who are you?" So the reason Ryoga had come to the orc camp was to meet the mysterious person hidden inside the tree. Only he knew this person's true identity. The once legendary hero who had saved the world, Sara Kashiwagi. The shadow's tone turned cold. "How do you know my name?" "I know more than just your name. I remember your deeds too. There used to be a memorial in the central city, and the inscription recorded the heroes who gave their lives for the nation. And in the early days of the disaster, you stood on the very front line, protecting humanity." A trace of comfort appeared in the shadow's eyes. "So, there's still someone who remembers me." But Ryoga said calmly, "Don't misunderstand. Your name is no longer on that memorial." The shadow's voice instantly sank. "What do you mean by that? You haven't forgotten the name Byakugo." Sara Kashiwagi's consciousness was dragged back 35 years. In that battle, he had requested reinforcements again and again. But the only response he received was, "No one else will be sent to support you." The man fell silent. He had been used as bait and abandoned outright. They had known perfectly well that the South Gate was the most dangerous, yet they lied to him and said it was safe. Mockery came from the communicator. "Thanks to you, we were able to withdraw smoothly from the North Gate." Suppressing his fury, Sara Kashiwagi roared, "You know very well that I would never abandon the civilians at the South Gate." The reply from the communicator was as cold as a blade. "Only those who survive deserve to be called heroes." Looking at the densely packed civilians behind him, Sara Kashiwagi made his decision. "You take the civilians and retreat. I'll handle this place. I'll hold them off alone." His teammates were all stunned. He shouted again and again, "That's an order." While the shadow was sinking into his memories, Ryoga pulled him back to reality. "Byakugo, the one who got you killed, became the hero of that battle. All your records were erased by him. Reality is ironic. You protected everything with your life, and in the end the honor was taken by someone else." The shadow's voice carried anger. "You found me. What exactly do you want?" Ryoga smiled faintly. "I can help you take revenge and make Byakugo pay the price. The condition is, sign an undead contract with me and become one of my immortal servants. To get you to join me, I even prepared the best possible vessel." Then he placed the draconian corpse on the ground. The shadow froze in place and stayed silent for a long time. Ever since becoming like this, he had never dared hope that he could still take revenge. "I can sign the contract, and I can obey your orders unconditionally. But I have one bottom line that absolutely cannot be crossed. I will not harm any innocent people." Ryoga paused slightly. Even after all these years, his original conviction was still there. "I promise you, I will not abuse your power to harm innocent civilians. Since the condition is established, then turn me into your servant." The next moment, Ryoga and the shadow completed the soul contract. System prompt: Mortal soul authority has been obtained. In his previous life, Ryoga had also signed a contract with the shadow, and had trained him into an outstanding knight. From that time on, he would occasionally wonder, if he had been given the best possible body from the beginning, just how strong could he have become? After obtaining the new body, the shadow instinctively examined himself. His initial attributes had actually broken past 100 right away, and he even came with multiple talent effects and various skills. Looking at the panel, Ryoga's eyes lit up. "I didn't expect replacing the ancient dragon heart with a soul as the core would bring such an outrageous return." More importantly, he had inherited the shadow's previous life trait. As a magic swordsman, he could freely switch between the powers of the warrior and mage systems. "Does this body suit you? Any abnormalities?" The shadow moved his limbs. "It still doesn't compare to my peak in my previous life, but this body has room to grow. Since everything's done, let's leave this place. From now on, your name is Fafnir." Fafnir frowned and roared, "You're seriously going to have a warrior follow you around like this?" He turned his head toward the nearby tent, and ripped off a piece of ragged cloth from it. "Even if I've become a servant, I'm still not used to moving around naked. Now we can officially set out." Ryoga was speechless for a moment. Even after becoming a draconian, he still cared about details like that. The scene shifted, and Ryoga returned to the alchemist Renya's laboratory. Renya's face was full of shock. The draconian corpse from not long ago had actually moved. "This is the greatest alchemy I've ever seen." I've decided to cooperate with you. Ryoga said flatly that it was just good luck and that he had happened to find a suitable soul. Ryoga, can I beat this guy up? He keeps touching me. He's just a weak little researcher. Let him off. Just then, someone walked over beside them. Mr. Ryoga, we plan to return to the central city first and sell off the magic stones. We hope there will be another chance to continue cooperating next time. After the team left, Ryoga summoned undead power once again, and the orc he had killed instantly appeared. Materials like an orc chief are very rare. What should I make with it? After thinking for a moment, he activated the flesh separation skill. The huge orc was stripped of flesh and blood, leaving behind only a complete skeleton. He asked Renya for the potion that had been prepared in advance, and dripped it onto the bones one drop at a time. This potion was specially used to strengthen bone durability. The effect was exactly as he had expected. He directly turned this orc skeleton into a skeleton guard, and even forcibly pushed its star level up to 2-star. Ryoga understood very well, when casting Life Drain, he was at his most vulnerable, and a guard could stand in front of him at exactly the right time. Why are you insisting on using a skeleton as a guard? Because skeletons don't rot easily, and bones are also more suitable for me to strengthen continuously. More importantly, ordinary servants have a time limit, but a guard can protect me 24 hours a day. Renya, look after it for me first. I have something more important that I must do immediately. I'm going to the Pantheon to obtain a sacred magic. That way, the connection between me and the skeleton will become more stable and deeper. Renya stood there blankly, as if he had misheard. You're a necromancer, and you're actually going to learn sacred magic? That makes no sense at all. My class is necromancer, but deep in my heart, I am a devout priest. Has this world gone mad? Since when does a dark wizard believe in sacred power? Ryoga changed the subject. Don't worry about my faith for now. Have you applied for a patent for your regeneration potion? Renya nodded. I submitted it 2 days ago, and it should be approved soon. But the problem is that the exhibition won't be held until next year, and that would be the best publicity window. As for publicity, I already thought that through long ago. Ryoga asked for the regeneration potion. I'll put this medicine in front of everyone's eyes. As long as we do this right, neither of us will have to worry about money ever again. Looking at Ryoga in front of him, only doubt remained in Renya's heart. Did this guy really look anything like some devout priest? The scene shifted, and the Pantheon was a divine miracle that had suddenly appeared when the disaster descended. The Pantheon gathered a great number of hunters. People set up stalls for trade and also took the opportunity to obtain various kinds of sacred magic. Many hunters would also put relics obtained from dungeons up for sale. Ryoga looked around, but did not discover a single relic carrying a sacred aura. After that, he walked straight toward the upper part of the Pantheon. After leveling up, I got a prompt saying I could obtain a new skill. But do I really have to climb all 108 steps? For a caster like me, this is torture. Kronos, I've been climbing for so long. How much farther? Don't rush. You've only reached halfway. Ryoga sighed helplessly and could only continue climbing upward. I just hope every step I climb can be exchanged for what I want. Not long after, Ryoga finally reached the top of the Pantheon, where the wills of countless constellations were enshrined at the highest point. System prompt. The constellation of the rich has shown disgust toward you. System prompt. The constellation that obscures death appears extremely suspicious. The king of Abydos is dissatisfied with you. Kronos chuckled. You just got up here, and already so many constellations dislike you. My constellation has also reappeared in the Pantheon, so let me personally grant you a skill. Because the constellation of Kronos had only newly appeared, he looked around for a while before finding its place. Then he selected his own constellation and activated the granting power. System prompt. The constellation of the Lord of the Gods has reappeared and has now been recorded in the volumes of the Pantheon. You have obtained Evil Blessing and Blade of Vengeance. Evil Blessing strengthens dark-aligned abilities and increases attribute values. Blade of Vengeance. Each time you are struck by an enemy, 1 stack is added. The higher the stack count, the higher the counterattack damage. Kronos said, these 2 moves are my trump cards. Ryoga chuckled. Old man, they're barely usable. At that moment, the system prompted again. The constellation that stands proudly above the firmament lacks the sacred presence it should possess. Please attract more followers of the constellation in order to raise the constellation's status in the Pantheon. Instead, Ryoga's eyes lit up. Attract followers? He had been 9-star in his previous life. This was what he was best at. Afterward, Ryoga left the Pantheon. A voice suddenly came from behind him. Why are you coming out from the temple? Ryoga, it really has been a long time. Ryoga frowned. Who are you? Do we know each other? The man froze for a moment. I'm Satak. You actually forgot me? I remember now. The little thug who used to extort protection fees. When I was working at the cafe, you were blackmailing my coworker. And later I beat you up. I remember I even punched your nose crooked. Looks like it recovered pretty fast. Satak stared at Ryoga fixedly, then in the next second forcibly calmed himself down. We're not people of the same world anymore. See this badge? I've already joined the Aragiri Guild. A bottom-feeding worm like you is no longer worthy of being my opponent. But in my eyes, you're still the same as ever, weak, cowardly, and only capable of barking. Last time you knocked me out with a sneak attack. Do you think you can pull that off again this time? As soon as the words fell, Satak threw a punch at Ryoga. The next moment, a hand caught Satak's wrist. The one who came was Satak's team captain, Jamin. Don't cause trouble in the city. Captain, this guy insulted me. He was even insulting our Arajiri guild. Jamin glanced at Ryoga. Since you're so dissatisfied, then have a match. Captain, are you serious? You want this guy to fight me? I saw him come out of the temple. He should be a rookie who just became a hunter. Ryoga said flatly, if you want to compete, I'll play along. Or what? After getting beaten by me once, are you still carrying trauma from it to this day? You're courting death yourself. I'll make you pay for it. The scene shifted again to the Arajiri competition arena. Ryoga said, I'm a priest. So the one you'll be fighting isn't me, but my contracted partner. You'll fight it. Satak sneered. A priest having a summon really is rare, but this low-level looking beast is all you brought? Don't worry, no one will die inside the match formation. I'll make you regret provoking me. Before the battle began, Satak kept mocking Ryoga for being weak, as if he could crush him with one hand. Ryoga could not be bothered to respond. Fafnir slowly stepped onto the field. So soon I'm already running into the Arajiri guild. This is my first time making a move, so I'll use you to get used to this new body. Ryoga, this is a guild that's one of your enemies, so I don't need to hold back, right? I'll allow you to vent, but don't end it too quickly. I still want to test something. Fafnir said in a low voice. That request is like asking someone to show mercy to a mosquito. Satak charged over blindly, and Fafnir only said he would try to go lightly. At the instant Satak attacked, Fafnir gave a light leap and threw a punch in one fluid motion. But he still was not fully accustomed to the new body, and Satak unexpectedly sidestepped out of the way. Satak slipped to the side and quickly crouched down, thrusting his spear at the lower abdomen from a tricky angle. The captain outside the field laughed. His movement is even faster than during training. But the next moment, the thrusting spear was caught dead in Fafnir's hand. You think an attack this slow would work? The moment you turned sideways to strike, you handed over your defense. Satak tried to yank the spear back in retreat, but no matter how hard he pulled, the spear would not budge. You should be glad this is only a practice match. If this were a real battle, you'd already be dead. Fafnir raised his fist, about to smash it down. Then he suddenly remembered, Ryoga told me to hold back. At the last moment, he changed the punch into a knife hand strike, using only 30% of his strength to chop Satak's chest. Even with less than 30% of his power, it was enough to make Satak hurt so badly he could barely breathe. Ryoga walked forward. I already told him to go easy on you, so you should admit defeat by now. Satak gritted his teeth. Who said it's over? I can still stand up. I haven't surrendered yet. Jamin said in a heavy voice, Ryoga, if he doesn't concede, then the match isn't over. Satak picked up his spear and charged again, even faster this time. But in Fafnir's eyes, it was still laughably slow, and he stomped one foot down and shattered the ground. Satak instantly lost his balance. Fafnir said flatly, you're just an inexperienced rookie. Your movements are too straight, too easy to read. He lifted his leg and kicked, striking the knee directly. With a crack, Satak's knee fractured on the spot. This time Fafnir had used less than 10% of his strength. He raised his knife hand. This time, it ends. Although the knife hand was not fast, Satak was so terrified that he could not even make a sound. He closed his eyes and waited for death, but Fafnir stopped at the final moment. Outside the field, Jamin trembled with rage. The defeat had been too ugly. At the same time, the match system announced, the battle has ended. Jamin immediately ordered his subordinates. His leg is a comminuted fracture. Go get a priest. Ryoga said calmly, am I not a priest? Jamin said coldly, I know you're a priest, but his bones are shattered. A one-star priest can't heal that. Or are you saying you have another way? I do. I carry regeneration potion with me. Jamin froze. I've never heard of such a potion. Even if it really exists, one bottle would cost several million. Of course you've never heard of it, because it hasn't hit the market yet. I'm saving him. If this drags on, he may have to spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. Ryoga poured out the potion, a trace of satisfaction flashing through his eyes. He had not expected a publicity opportunity to come so conveniently. The moment the potion fell, the knee recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Jamin could not believe it. In such a short moment, even the bones had fused back together. With medicine like this, it was equivalent to having one more life. Suppressing his emotions, Jamin asked, where did you get this potion? Ryoga smiled. He had started taking the bait. You're a team captain of the Arajiri Guild, with 3-star strength, right? If you want to know where the potion came from, fight my summon one more time. Jamin frowned. You've already won, and that's still not enough? Fine, I agree. But win or lose, you have to tell me where the potion came from. No problem. That ended too fast just now, and I haven't really warmed up yet. The next second, Fafnir entered combat stance again. At the instant the match began, Jamin exploded into a charge. His longsword turned into flashes of sword light, striking Fafnir in a flurry. Jamin felt a shock in his heart. His sword was famous for its speed. Yet this draconian not only saw it clearly, but could even time every single block perfectly. System prompt: under sustained attack, defense has begun to decrease. Fafnir sensed the change in his body and immediately prepared to counterattack, stomping the ground as well to make the opponent lose balance. But Jamin leaped up at the same time and avoided it directly. At ringside, Ryoga observed intently, as he had expected. The draconian body was indeed at a disadvantage against speed-type opponents, and its turning speed was not fast enough. But Fafnir's experience ran too deep. Even at a disadvantage, he could still read the opponent's offensive pattern. Instead, Fafnir grew excited. This was the perfect chance to adapt to the draconian body through battle. Fafnir, I'm very satisfied with your performance. Since I'm the summoner, I won't just stand here and watch you suffer at a disadvantage. The next moment, evil blessing covered Fafnir's entire body, and his senses, speed, and strength all surged at once. Meanwhile, Jamin, who was brushed by the aura, had his attributes directly reduced by 30%. Even Ryoga himself paused slightly. The skill was only at beginner level, yet it already had this much suppressive force. If it were raised to a high tier, he did not even dare imagine its power. Kronos' voice sounded in his mind. Boy, now you know how powerful I am, don't you? Revere me to your heart's content. Save the reverence for later. We'll talk after the fight. What comes next is the real test. Ryoga then activated Blade of Vengeance. Evil Blessing and Blade of Vengeance stacked on Fafnir at the same time. Ryoga said coldly, you can fight freely now. You're no longer human. Stop limiting yourself with human methods of fighting. Jamin still wanted to rely on speed to suppress him, and his sword strikes came down like raindrops onto Fafnir's body. System prompts kept popping up, stack count increasing. Jamin gritted his teeth. Even if my attributes are suppressed, I'm still a 3-star hunter. Against a 1-star summon, it's enough. But Fafnir only defended the whole time and did not rush to attack. He understood very clearly, the current him was not human. He did not need to preserve his life as cautiously as a human would. He could withstand it. He had only one advantage, a strong body and overwhelming strength. What he needed to do was seize one opportunity, get in close, and then crush. Jamin had not expected Fafnir to suddenly abandon defense and force his way forward through the rain of sword strikes. The longsword landed countless times, but the draconian's movements were not weakened. Instead, he drew closer and closer. In the next instant, Fafnir got in close and sent Jamin flying with one punch. This single hit directly knocked off 50% of Jamin's health. A chill ran through Jamin's heart. Is this really a 1-star summon? I have to change strategies. I absolutely cannot let it get close again. He suddenly understood, if he could not bring down the summon, then he would kill the summoner. Jamin poured all his strength into his ankles, bursting to a terrifying speed as he rushed straight toward Ryoga. If I can't cut down the draconian, then I'll sever the source. As long as I defeat you, this 1-star priest, the match will end. Don't blame me. I had wanted to crush your summon, but now I can only kill you first. At the moment the longsword closed in, Ryoga did not retreat a single step. You really are stupid. Did you think I wouldn't anticipate such an obvious weakness? He raised his hand and snapped his fingers, and Blade of Vengeance activated instantly. All the attacks Jamin had previously landed on Fafnir transformed into retaliatory blades at this moment and were all returned to him. Jamin was blown away on the spot. The system prompt sounded immediately after. Jamin's health has reached 0. The match is over. A moment later, the scene cut to the Aragiri Guild headquarters. You're saying they can mass-produce something comparable to high-grade potions, a regeneration potion? The one speaking was the guild's second-in-command, Bayakoko. That's right, Vice Guildmaster. I witnessed the effect of the regeneration potion with my own eyes. Even I've never heard of this sort of development. Are you sure you weren't deceived? I saw with my own eyes that the moment the potion was dripped on, the bones began to recover, and the recovery was extremely complete. Set the potion aside for now. You're a 3-star hunter of our guild. A 3-star hunter losing to a 1-star summon. Don't you think that's making the guild lose face? And I also heard that after you lost, you simply stated the name of the Aragiri Guild and left. You protected your own dignity, but pushed the guild into the position of being humiliated. Starting today, you're demoted and returned to ordinary member status. After Jamin left, Byakugo immediately told his secretary to investigate the regeneration potion. He had to find out where this medicine came from. Besides that, there was no way a 1-star priest could defeat a 3-star swordsman, unless the priest had mastered some kind of divine-level summoning technique. Byakugo could not understand it. A priest, how could he possibly possess a summon of that level? While you're at it, investigate that person's detailed information as well. Meanwhile, Ryoga was waiting for news of the regeneration potion to reach Aragiri's upper ranks. At that moment, Fafnir suddenly said there was something he could not understand. Why did you tell me to study spear skill books the moment the fight ended? There's nothing to be curious about. You're an all-round warrior, and I want you to develop more comprehensively. I see, but I still prefer using my fists. If you can also master weapons, your attacks won't be so one-dimensional. Fafnir laughed loudly. Only fists landing flesh to flesh feel manly. Ryoga immediately activated a trace of necromancy. Fafnir was startled. Why is my fist moving on its own? Ryoga, you really are shameless. To force me to learn, you actually controlled me. If I'm going to practice the spear, then you, as my master, have to master it completely too. Ryoga took the skill book, his expression completely calm. This was only the most basic spear art. Once the contents were understood, even a child could learn it. More importantly, as someone reborn, Ryoga only needed an instant to grasp the knowledge in the book. The next moment, the skill book turned into a stream of light and poured directly into his mind. Since you've learned spear techniques, then train properly with me, Summoner. Before the words had even finished, Fafnir's attack had already smashed into the place where Ryoga had just been standing. Ryoga instinctively stepped back. That was way too sudden. Weren't you going to test my spear techniques? Why are you dodging so fast? Ryoga complained helplessly. You're definitely holding a grudge because I controlled you just now. Fafnir immediately revealed a smug look. How could I possibly be that kind of person? Then his expression darkened. In real combat, you have to fight with killing intent. Didn't I tell you? I was also equally proficient in spear techniques before. I'm an all-round warrior. Today I'll let you see my attacks clearly. With that, he charged at Ryoga. Ryoga was not flustered in the slightest. I've already fully comprehended basic spear techniques. Today, I'm going to give Fafnir a proper beating. The next second, Fafnir thrust his spear straight at Ryoga's chest. Ryoga immediately blocked, secretly delighted. Once I block this strike, it'll be my turn to counterattack. But at the instant the block succeeded, Fafnir's spear suddenly tilted upward and changed direction. Ryoga's pupils shrank. Had he really trained spear techniques to the absolute extreme long ago? You think you can relax after blocking once? Until victory and defeat are decided, you can't loosen up for even a single moment. I clearly blocked it, so why did I still get hit? The moment you blocked, your eyes had already locked onto me, and your mind was left only with counterattacking. But you forgot, I still had a second sequence. Ryoga refused to accept it. That's only because your attributes are higher than mine. That's why I lost. Fafnir looked at him and said directly, then I'll suppress my attributes to your level. At the same level, I definitely won't get hit by your second sequence again. Fafnir attacked once more, and Ryoga met him head-on in defense. He calculated over and over in his mind, as long as I block the second sequence, I can counterattack. The next moment, Ryoga's vision went black. And when he came to, he was already lying on the ground. Your mind was full of blocking the second sequence, and in the end you didn't even block the first. Ryoga knew very well, after being reborn, he really had grown lax. In that case, starting today, I'll completely shatter that laxness. Seeing his rising fighting spirit, Fafnir answered in a deep voice, I'll accompany you to the end. The scene shifted to a barbecue restaurant. The squad captain could not help complaining, Ryoga, what happened to you? Ryoga did not want to say a single word. He had been pinned down and beaten for a full 3 hours. Fafnir was definitely doing it on purpose. He looked really happy while beating me up. Resting inside Ryoga's body, Fafnir spoke up. There really aren't many chances to beat you up this reasonably. Ryoga asked, you called me out so suddenly. What is it? One of the team members found a piece of news on the Hunter website, and it's blown up completely. The Forgotten Temple is about to open to all hunters. Ryoga was slightly shaken. That place still hasn't been fully cleared? The ownership of the Forgotten Temple dungeon is currently in the hands of the Frost Guild, but they still haven't cleared it after a full year. Mr. Ryoga also knows that dungeons are divided into static gates and dynamic gates. Once the mana density of a dynamic gate exceeds 100%, monsters will invade the human world. Static gates, on the other hand, release monsters on a fixed cycle. The Frost Guild made a strategic mistake, and the mana density of the Forgotten Temple is close to breaking past 100%. That's why they have no choice but to open the dungeon to the public. Ryoga suddenly recalled something from his previous life. The dragon scale armor obtained by the Phoenix Guild had come from the Forgotten Temple. If it still hasn't been fully cleared, then I still have a chance to take that divine great armor first. Rumor says it carries the power of a dragon. The squad captain could not understand. Why had Ryoga's gaze suddenly become so dangerous? Help me form a team. Tomorrow, we're heading to the Forgotten Temple too. The next day, in front of the Forgotten Temple dungeon. The mana density had already soared to 93. After all the major guilds received the news, their logistics units had long since arrived in full force. Captain, this is definitely going to be a hard battle. So many guilds have come, and we only brought 5 days worth of rations. Is that really enough? It is, because we'll keep pushing through the dungeon non-stop, and it'll be over soon. At that moment, the squad members suddenly showed excited expressions. The next Sword Saint candidate, Asaka, Ryoga looked in the direction of the voices. Asaka was the one who had obtained the dragon scale armor in his previous life. Asaka was praised as the most talented legend in the history of the Phoenix Guild, yet she died unexpectedly before she could fully grow. At the same time, the squad captain shouted, "Look to the east." That was Iron Fist, a man famous throughout the entire region. Ryoga shifted slightly to the side. One dungeon had gathered together all the famous figures of the region. "Stop spacing out and get ready to go in with me. This time, we're going to be the first to conquer the dungeon." Very soon, everyone stepped into the Forgotten Temple. The temple is extremely dangerous. Summon Fafnir first for protection. Watching this scene, the girl worried. His skills are all undead type. Could he turn us into slaves too? Ryoga suddenly appeared behind them. "I have no interest in casually turning people into slaves. To put it bluntly, you're too weak, and you're not worthy of becoming my slaves. And besides, you're partners. I won't lay a hand on my companions." Suddenly, the entire temple began shaking violently. This was the so-called moving dungeon of rumor. Although it was marked as only 2-star, because it shifted irregularly every day, its real difficulty directly approached 3-star. Just like in my previous life, the dungeon shifts unpredictably, and even the monster positions change randomly. "Fafnir, go scout ahead first." The next second, both Evil Blessing and Blade of Vengeance were activated at the same time. A short while later, everyone had advanced deep into the temple interior. Fafnir suddenly stopped in his tracks. A warlock in a white robe slowly walked out, wrapped in dense deathly aura that clung to him like mist and would not disperse. Judging from the known information, that was a fallen sorcerer. Before anyone had time to formulate tactics, the sorcerer directly attacked all of them. Fafnir immediately moved up and met it head-on. But the fallen sorcerer had been a mage while alive, and in close combat its strength was utterly crushed by Fafnir. He instantly twisted the sorcerer's fingers apart, slammed him viciously into the ground with a backhand motion, and with one falling punch, cleanly smashed the sorcerer's head. The squad captain's pupils shrank. The fallen sorcerer had actually been completely suppressed. This fallen sorcerer is way too weak. It's impossible to get interested in something like this. The Draconian race is naturally strong to begin with, so of course it's easy for you. But you smashed its head, so now I can't use necromancy to control it. Fafnir said flatly, "That's nothing to worry about. Look over there, aren't there still a whole bunch of fallen sorcerers? This time, let me try." Immediately after, bone control was unleashed in an instant. In the blink of an eye, bones shot through the air like hidden weapons, aimed straight for vital points. And every strike precisely hit the sorcerers' bodies. Bone spikes wrapped in undead aura burrowed into the sorcerers one after another. Mage-type monsters had almost no resistance to elemental power. As long as holy mana was disguised as necromantic aura and injected into their bodies, their movements could be slowed drastically. Fafnir, rushing at the front, raised a brow. This bunch of sorcerers suddenly feels much slower. In less than a minute, several sorcerers were all brought down. This time I was very careful and deliberately didn't smash their heads. At the same time the sorcerers fell, a system prompt sounded in Ryoga's mind. Level increased to 20. New skill obtained, Dark Sage. New skill obtained, Dark Dominion. Reduces the energy required for undead summons by 20%. That meant he could now fight for much longer. The next moment, the fallen sorcerers were awakened instantly, and in the blink of an eye they were completely transformed into undead servants. The moment the transformation was complete, the servants instinctively searched for enemies and charged into battle. At the same time, the squad members also all entered combat mode. Fafnir did not fall behind either and immediately joined the surrounding sorcerers in fierce battle. But this scene instead made Ryoga's heart sink. Why were these sorcerers pouring out endlessly like a current? He was still thinking when the ground shook violently once again. "Ryoga, we have to leave this room immediately. The dungeon structure is about to shift again." Ryoga did not give the order right away, but suddenly recalled a piece of information from his previous life. In his previous life, Asaka had accepted a media interview. "You were the first player to successfully conquer the Forgotten Temple. Everyone wants to know, how did you open that door?" Asaka had said, "Ordinary doors open automatically once the boss is defeated, but the final boss's door must be opened by a special method. No matter how the temple shifts, in the end 3 kinds of monsters will always reappear in cycle. Defeating the 3 kinds of monsters causes 3 kinds of badges to drop. Collect 49 badges and place them in the designated location, and you can immediately enter the boss area." The next moment, a blood-red demon eye slowly appeared in the void. The squad captain said in a low voice, "The shape of this demon eye is exactly the same as the patterns on the surrounding pillars. The originally illusory demon eye condensed into a solid form in the blink of an eye, and the light inside its pupil flashed wildly. Immediately after, attacks pierced forward like arrows. The sound of tearing wind was like thunder, ripping through the entire space. Ryoga looked as though he had long been prepared. He spread the fingers of one hand slightly, and 5 bone-hidden weapons he had prepared in advance appeared at once. Covered in undead power, the hidden weapons instantly unfolded into bone shields and blocked in front of him. The fierce impact slammed into them repeatedly. But no matter how hard they struck, the bone shields did not show even the slightest crack. Ryoga easily neutralized this wave of attacks. Because these bones were no ordinary material, he had long since carved necromantic runes into them, strengthening their hardness to a terrifying degree. Just as everyone had finally lowered their guard, the demon eye fired again almost instantly. The interval between the two attacks was less than 0.2 seconds. Just as it was about to hit, Fafnir shifted sideways in a single step and directly stood in front of Ryoga. Even if I didn't block it, you could dodge. But since I'm your guard, stay properly behind me. Before the words had ended, the second attack struck Fafnir head-on. The explosive force swallowed his entire body. This power is even weaker than I expected. When the dust cleared, Fafnir was completely unharmed. Ryoga's expression remained calm. He had put far too much effort into crafting this draconian body. How could a mere 2-star dungeon break its defense? You're right, the attack hit me, and I didn't feel any pain at all. Against the demon eye, there's no need for me to be cautious. I just need to smash it apart with my body. The next moment, he threw a punch that landed squarely on the demon eye. This demon eye may be strong against ordinary creatures, but it means nothing to me. Do you want to turn it into a servant? What I need is the item it drops. That is the key to entering the final stage. A short while later, the group encountered another kind of monster wearing a mask. The place to activate the stage required the smiling face item, and that item was on the masked monster in front of them. This thing is really ugly. The instant the words fell, the masked monster let out a piercing shriek. The moment the shriek stopped, a black-red curse rushed straight at Fafnir. System prompt: the mask mimic has reduced Fafnir's attributes. Sensing his attributes decrease, Ryoga asked whether he wanted him to step in. The masked monster's curse is dark type, and necromancy is a higher-order existence within the dark type. I can dispel it myself. The next moment, the system prompt sounded: curse removed. Ryoga was slightly surprised. Necromancy was indeed higher order, but Fafnir had actually broken free directly by relying on his own undead power. Ryoga immediately followed with another evil blessing. I originally wanted to let you fight it slowly, but we don't have enough time. The next moment, the lingering cursed aura on Fafnir was completely blown away. Immediately after, Ryoga raised his hand and cast bone control again, instantly killing the mask monster in one strike. Looks like its mask is the thing we need. Ryoga picked up the item without hesitation. This thing is necessary to enter the boss stage, but it really is ugly. The sorcerer's horn, the demon eye, the mask monster item, these three are enough once we collect 49 of them. But Ryoga was still puzzled. Why had Osaka known about this mechanism? In the reports from his previous life, she had even emphasized specifically that none of the items could be destroyed. In other words, once an item was damaged, it would become completely impossible to enter the boss stage. From these details, it was clear that Osaka knew some secret they did not. At this moment, the squad captain reminded him, the Phoenix Guild is fighting in the adjacent room. Ryoga turned to look. They had arrived pretty quickly too. At that moment, masked monsters surrounded Osaka's squad, but there was not the slightest trace of panic in Osaka's eyes. Even stranger, the curses of the masked monsters seemed ineffective against her, and wherever her slashes passed, the monsters were cleared out directly. Kronos laughed softly. So she's infusing spiritual power into her slashes, allowing her to cut through curses directly. Ryoga immediately told everyone to pick up the pace. While behind them, Osaka's gaze slowly locked onto Ryoga's group. Captain, are you paying a lot of attention to that squad? Osaka frowned. They seem to know a way to dispel curses too. A team member immediately denied it. Captain, you're overthinking it. They must just be lucky and avoided being cursed. But in Osaka's eyes, even though it was clearly her first time seeing Ryoga, he gave off an indescribable pressure, powerful and mysterious. The scene shifted, and everyone had already remained inside the Forgotten Temple for a full 5 days. Even Ryoga had not expected it. The monsters had kept pouring out endlessly during those 5 days. Even the squad captain was beginning to panic. This had completely exceeded everyone's expectations. Suddenly, one of the squad members shuddered, as another group of sorcerers in the distance advanced toward them once again. Fafnir raised a hand and threw a punch. These things are impossible to finish off. The newly appeared sorcerers were killed on the spot without suspense. For 5 whole days, you still don't look tired at all. No wonder you're the one I chose. I'm a necromancer. I only need to direct my puppets to fight. And every time the puppets kill a sorcerer, I can absorb power from them. So I don't need rest at all. After 5 days and 5 nights without sleep, Ryoga's level had also risen to 27. Then he collected all the materials dropped on the ground, and immediately after that, placed all the items into the designated locations in sequence. At once, the stone pillars that had originally been dim began once again to seep out strands of faint light. He had already lit up 48 stone pillars, and the other raiding teams had basically all withdrawn as well. He turned and announced, "We've gained enough over these past few days. You should go out first and sell the magic stones. I still need to stay inside a little longer." The squad captain nodded. "We'll do as you say, Ryoga." A moment later, Ryoga entered the next room with his puppets. The ground began shaking yet again. Fafnir frowned. "The tremors are getting more and more frequent. Shouldn't we also withdraw from the dungeon?" "I deliberately had them leave first, because next, we're going to clear this dungeon completely. We've been carrying out high-intensity subjugation for 5 days straight, yet we still haven't seen the boss. You were curious earlier why I placed the materials on the stone pillars. That is the condition for summoning the boss. We need to find the pillars in the room that bear the 3 kinds of patterns. As long as we place the final set of materials, the prerequisite will be complete." As he spoke, the dungeon's tremors became denser and denser, and while switching irregularly, it even began randomly attacking Ryoga. Ryoga could only keep dodging while scanning his surroundings for the stone pillars. He had to be faster. This dungeon looked as if it would collapse the very next second. Just as Ryoga was searching quickly, Fafnir shouted, "Found it." Ryoga looked in the direction he indicated, only to discover that the stone pillar was actually in the opposite direction, and reaching it would require making a huge detour. At that moment, Fafnir directly threw the materials toward him. Ryoga did not hesitate in the slightest and flung the materials out with one hand. Fafnir tanked all the incoming attacks and rushed to the stone pillar in an instant. He stared at the totem on the pillar. That was the last one. "That's it. Just place the materials at the base of the pillar." The next second, the stone pillar lit with a faint glow. The attacks that had originally been coming at them also stopped abruptly. The stone pillar began refracting mana, and a huge magic circle spread across the ground as a hidden door quietly emerged. I really didn't expect that even though this is only a 2-star dungeon, its complexity would exceed a 3-star one. "Fafnir, stay sharp. The real battle is only beginning now. Don't worry, I'm a summon. I don't get tired. Looks like this is the final stage. This room gives me a very ominous feeling." Ryoga slowly pushed open the hidden door, holding his breath inwardly. What kind of boss was behind it? But the moment the door opened a crack, the boss was already waiting at the entrance. Its attack instantly blasted toward Ryoga. Almost in the very same second the door opened, Fafnir stepped in front of him, poured undead power into his fist, and shattered the incoming attack on the spot with a single punch. At the same time, the monster released a curse once again. Ryoga only felt his mind grow heavy, as if in the next second he would be completely swallowed by that darkness. Sensing that Ryoga had suddenly stepped forward, Fafnir immediately asked what was wrong. Ryoga did not answer and only kept walking forward. The boss seemed to reveal a smug smile, as though its next attack would completely reap Ryoga's life. Ryoga suddenly spoke, his voice soft, yet so oppressive it made breathing difficult. "A curse at this level, and you think you can control me? Ikanyagnurokusis. Your methods are a joke in front of me." The boss was clearly stunned. It could not understand why the curse had failed. Ryoga said coldly, "I used evil blessing to suppress its attributes. In its current state, it's nothing worth mentioning. Fafnir, I'm leaving the rest to you." As if enraged by Ryoga's contempt, the boss suddenly condensed mana. Mana and cursed power twisted together, forming a dark purple sphere of light, which then shot out abruptly. In less than a breath, the mana arrow had already arrived in front of Fafnir. Fafnir did not panic. Undead power instantly gathered in both legs. At the exact instant before the arrow hit, his whole body vanished from where he stood and surged forward directly. From the boss's perspective, that was disappearance. His speed was too fast to capture. The next moment, Fafnir appeared at its side, and his fist thundered out, smashing hard into the boss's thigh. The boss was forced to step back half a pace, and the area that had been struck instantly swelled with blisters and leaked faint purple aura. Fafnir's expression sank. Something's wrong. This is the boss's innate curse. Those 3 kinds of monsters have fused together, and this curse will slowly dissolve my body. Ryoga immediately followed up with evil blessing. "Don't panic. My evil blessing is the nemesis of dark-type spells." Fafnir's curse was instantly dispelled. At that moment, the boss's counterattack was already right in his face, and Fafnir quickly retreated. But the moment his footing stabilized, he closed in again and smashed another punch into the boss's leg. Under the enhancement of evil blessing, his attributes surged dramatically. After who knew how many punches, the boss's body finally could not withstand it any longer, and a cracking sound rang out. The next second, Fafnir poured in more force and punched through, forcibly smashing through its defense. The boss clutched its leg and let out a shrill scream. Fafnir knew very well, while it was in pain, he had to kill it directly. But just as he was about to pursue, the boss suddenly swept its claws indiscriminately across the area in front of it. That swipe inflicted serious wounds on Fafnir's arm and lower leg. Fafnir stepped back and asked in a deep voice, "What now?" Ryoga said coldly, "The boss's regeneration is very strong. We have to kill it in one go right now." Ryoga's attack once again pierced straight through the boss. Feeling death approach, the boss immediately entered its full power state, and berserk mana erupted completely. Fafnir immediately raised a defense. Ryoga also instantly summoned sorcerer servants to stand in front of him. A mana eruption of this level was bound to leave a brief opening after it was used up. The moment the attack stopped, Ryoga did not hesitate for even half a second and charged straight forward. The boss had only just reacted when Ryoga's palm was already pressed against it. Blade of Vengeance activated at the same time. This time, the goal was to lock down its movements. Fafnir also came crashing down from above, pouring all the power of his body into his fist. And with a thunderous boom, his heavy punch smashed the boss's head apart. The boss's body broke and scattered on the spot. This bastard was really tough, it's finally dead. At that very moment, the system prompted, level increased by 6. Ryoga wore a faint smile. But the return is rich enough too. Your level jumped by 6 at once. The boss is dead, and before the dungeon collapses, we have to find what I need. Not long after, a suit of armor emitting a faint glow appeared in the corner. Fafnir said in a low voice that the armor looked pretty good, and Ryoga's heart sank. Found it, the dragon scale armor. The dragon scale armor was entirely made of dragon bones, could change form according to the user's will, and was a growth-type divine artifact. Ryoga raised a hand and brushed over the armor, and the next moment, as if recognizing its master, it instantly attached itself to his body. System prompt. Physical resistance increased to level 47, magic resistance level 35, agility reduced by 5%. Fafnir said, with this armor, I can attack with even more peace of mind. You mean every time you attack, you still have to split your focus to protect me, and that's tiring for you? Fafnir let out a light sigh. I didn't say that, you said it yourself. A moment later, the temple notification sounded. The temple dungeon has been completed. The dungeon will close in 3 minutes. Everyone outside was in an uproar. Someone had killed the final boss? The squad captain saw Ryoga walking out and immediately jogged over to him. Did you hear? The temple dungeon has been cleared. Of course I heard. I'm the one who did it. The squad captain froze on the spot. You did all of it? After we left, you cleared the whole dungeon by yourself? That cry of surprise instantly drew all the surrounding attention over. Ryoga immediately stopped him. Shut up. I don't want people to know I cleared it. You were the first to clear it. Your fame would explode instantly. Forget it. I hate being watched. Also, I'll give you part of the botch rewards later. The squad captain shook his head at once. No need. We didn't participate in the core raid at all. Seeing how firm his attitude was, Ryoga silently accepted it. The shadow mask was engraved with multiple curses and could inflict curses on targets while tracking them. The other item was a book. Our team's goal this time has been achieved. All of you must keep this secret for me. On the other side, Iron Fist asked Asaka, was it your team that cleared the dungeon? Asaka shook her head. I thought it was you. If we had succeeded, the Phoenix Guild would already have arranged a press conference. Iron Fist narrowed his eyes. Looks like besides us, some other strong figure slipped in too. Asaka said in a low voice, besides you and me this time, who else could have done it? The next second, Ryoga's figure appeared in her mind. Could it have been that man? Impossible, with his team composition, he should not have been able to accomplish something like that. The scene shifted to Renya's workshop. The squad captain frowned. Why does his workshop feel even methier than last time? And right then, Renya practically shouted, Ryoga, what exactly did you do? You're this flustered. Did the Aragiri Guild come knocking? They didn't just come to visit. They wanted to buy our potions in bulk too. You have no idea what I've gone through these last 2 days. It's not just Aragiri. People from all over the country are fighting to buy the potions. I don't even have time to sleep. The moment the phone rings, I have to answer. The orders are piled up so high I can barely breathe. Isn't this exactly the result you wanted? I wanted orders, but I didn't expect them to come this fiercely. By the way, Ryoga, I got the thing you told me to keep an eye on. It was a low-grade dark orb. Fafnir took one look and asked in confusion, why are you buying something like that? Of course it's for you. Ryoga raised his hand and pressed it against Fafnir's chest. I'm going to make undead power resonate with the dark orb, then implant it into your body. Your attributes will rise noticeably. Most importantly, it can increase the compatibility between the draconian body and your soul. The next moment, the system prompted, draconian compatibility increased by 7%. Fafnir frowned. My attributes rose quite a bit, but why did compatibility only go up this little? Compatibility is your reaction speed and control. A 7% increase is already outrageous. Without any warning, Ryoga directly threw the dark orb in his hand. Fafnir instinctively reached out and caught it steadily. What exactly are you doing? Ryoga said, didn't you notice? Your reactions have become much faster. And as long as the dark orb remains in your body over time, your reaction speed will continue to improve. Immediately after, Ryoga also threw out the corpse of the temple boss. You actually kept the corpse too. Are you planning to turn it into a servant as well? Fafnir is enough as a servant. I'm planning to turn it into a golem. The squad captain sucked in a cold breath. You mean the kind of golem that has no emotions and only knows slaughter? My level still isn't high enough to summon a second servant, so I can only make a golem first. To make a golem, I need an alchemist, and I also need other materials. The alchemist side of the requirements is already complete. Next, I'm going to find the materials. The scene shifted to a rundown shopping mall. Fafnir asked in a low voice, "Can we really find what we need here?" The owner of this mall, Madame Shuri, is a merchant on the surface, but a black market broker behind the scenes. She has the materials I need in her hands, so there's no mistake. The moment the two entered the mall, they sensed that something was wrong. The air carried the smell of battle, and someone was lying on the ground. The man saw Ryoga and immediately became wary. "Where is Madame Shuri?" Faced with Ryoga's questioning, the man stubbornly refused to speak. But a minute later, he still opened his mouth. "The madam fled east. My people chased her for 30 minutes. It'll be hard to find her now," Ryoga said flatly. "It won't be hard for me." Then he activated the shadow mask. This thing came with tracking. Very soon, Madame Shuri's escape route appeared before his eyes. At that moment, Madame Shuri was desperately running for her life, and the pursuers behind her had also locked onto her trail. Madame Shuri could not understand why the Red Spider gang wanted to capture her. But she knew very well, once she was caught, she was finished. The road ahead was blocked by her pursuers, and people were also circling around to cut her off from behind. Madame Shuri clenched her teeth fiercely. "Is this how it ends? Madame Shuri, you really can run. You made us waste quite a bit of effort. Wouldn't it have been easier if you had just surrendered obediently? You made us chase you for so long." Madame Shuri drew a weapon from her sleeve, forced the mana in her body out, and took a desperate stance. The leader sneered. "Your mana is almost dry, and you're still putting on such a tough act?" Madame Shuri gave a bitter smile. She herself knew she could not hold out much longer. "There are quite a few people gathered here. Pretty lively." The one who spoke was Ryoga, who had just arrived. A group of people surrounding one lady isn't very gentlemanly. This sudden voice startled all the pursuers. "We're from Red Spider. If you don't want to die, get lost." Ryoga chuckled. "But today I feel like using you to warm up. So what should we do?" "Don't think bringing a summon means you can do whatever you want." As soon as the words fell, everyone immediately moved to surround Ryoga. But before they could get close, Fafnir stepped forward with a punch, and his fist sank directly into one man's abdomen. He seized another man in the same motion, then mercilessly hurled him away, crashing through a large section of the encirclement. The leader's pupils contracted. He dropped two people in an instant. "You've angered me. I'll let you know the price of offending Red Spider." He raised a hand and summoned flames. "I'll burn you to ashes." The next moment, a violent sea of fire directly engulfed Ryoga's direction. The surrounding people could not help laughing out loud. But soon, the leader's voice trembled. "How is this possible? Those seemingly terrifying flames had not even singed a single hair on Fafnir." Before he had time to think more, Fafnir punched him in the face. "This time I'm sparing your life. In the future, don't talk so arrogantly." Fafnir turned back and said, "Ryoga, did you see that? No matter how arrogant they are, it only takes one punch." Ryoga then turned his gaze to Madame Shuri. Her face was smooth and intact, without any burns. But Ryoga remembered, in his previous life, Madame Shuri had severe facial burns. So this event must have caused them. Fortunately, because he intervened early, she had escaped this fate. At that moment, a figure rushed over from the distance and called out anxiously, "Madam, are you alright?" "I'm not hurt, but it looks like Red Spider has targeted us." Ryoga's eyes darkened slightly. Judging from the manner the old man was releasing, he was a fairly capable guard. Madame Shuri noticed Ryoga's expression and asked, "Who are these people?" "I originally came to your mall to buy something. When I found trouble in your shop, I looked around nearby." "Madam, you look very tired." Ryoga activated Life Drain, plundered the surrounding residual energy, converted it into healing mana, and infused it into her body. Madame Shuri was stunned. In an instant, her fatigue was wiped away, and even her skin seemed finer. "Mr. Ryoga, are you a high-level priest? You can think of it that way." Back inside the mall. "To thank you, whatever you want to drink today is on me." "Mr. Ryoga, someone like you coming here. What is it you want?" A black market broker really is sharp. "I want a ticket to the underground auction house." Madame Shuri was slightly surprised. "Just one ticket? You save me. This is my card. With it, aside from Red Spider's territory, you can move freely anywhere else. I'm also looking for a mana tool, one that can support 3-star mana output. A mana transmission tool? I can't guarantee whether the auction house has one." Ryoga said, "I came here to try my luck. If even the auction house doesn't have one, then Mr. Ryoga, if you're in a hurry, then as long as you help me finish one matter, I can look for it on your behalf. With me stepping in, the efficiency will be much higher than if you search on your own." "You mean, help you clean out Red Spider? In your area, they count as a major organization. But in your eyes, they're not a threat. As long as you help me wipe them out, I'll give you Axe Thread. That's a specialized material for mana tools." This woman is very shrewd. Looks like she's long held the clue to the mana output tool. Fine, deal. Madame Shuri stared at him. You agreed so readily, your strength exceeds my imagination. May I ask what your level is? The next moment, Madame Shuri froze in place. You're actually only 1 star? The scene shifted to the C-rank Ant Dungeon region. Madame Shuri walked to the edge, then stabbed her dagger viciously into the ground. Before long, the entire area was densely planted with daggers. This was one of Madame Shuri's abilities. She could instantly cripple all communications in the surrounding area. The man picked up a walkie-talkie. Everything's normal in the East District. Is there any situation in the West? But strangely, there was never any response from the walkie-talkie. The next moment, the man's vision went black, and his throat was slit on the spot. Even Madame Shuri was stunned. It had only been such a short while, yet all the Red Spider members in the area had already been cleaned out. Since we're already here, there's no need for you to enter the dungeon. Coincidentally, there's something inside this dungeon that I want. I'll be back soon. After saying that, Ryoga directly stepped into the Ant Instance dungeon. To prevent being ambushed inside, he immediately summoned servants to stand guard. Fafnir asked, "Are you sure you want to wipe out everyone inside the dungeon? Whether they're red spider people or monsters inside the dungeon, kill them all." Before the words had even finished, a red slime crawled out ahead. The red slime had a danger rating of 3 stars and was a highly corrosive monster. Fafnir took one look at it and felt no threat at all. But Ryoga reminded him, that was only its appearance. Its attacks could easily corrode through steel. However, when it attacked, the core inside its body would be exposed, shatter the core, and it dies instantly. In other words, at the same moment it attacks, it also presents its weakness right in front of you. At that moment, the slime suddenly pounced toward Fafnir. Following Ryoga's instructions, Fafnir seized the opening and smashed the core in one strike. The monster instantly collapsed. Fafnir laughed excitedly. That felt amazing. But it's slime, so once it dies, it dissipates. Your undead awakening won't work on it. Which means today, I'm the main character. You're celebrating too early. Since I can't revive their corpses, then I'll revive their souls. From the spot where the red slime had dissipated, a ghostly light suddenly floated up. Ryoga smiled softly. Come out, and serve me. A ghost quietly took shape and hovered in Ryoga's palm. Fafnir was startled. What use could a ghost that small possibly have? You'll see in a moment. The two continued deeper, and soon encountered 3 more red slimes. Before the slimes could even pounce, Ryoga directly drove the ghost forward. The 3 slimes were instantly entangled by shadowy spirits. System prompt: slime strength and agility reduced by 2%, and the fatigue debuff has been applied. After being afflicted by the debuff, the 3 slimes' movements became obviously sluggish, and almost all of their will to fight was gone. Fafnir was stunned. This ghost was actually that crucial. At the same time, inside the dungeon, the Red Spider leader warned everyone in a deep voice that they had to heighten their guard. Each bloodstone from this dungeon is worth 12,000. If anything goes wrong, not only will you be executed by the boss, I won't survive either. Captain, sorry to interrupt. We've lost contact with the people outside the dungeon for dozens of minutes already. The captain's heart sank, and his instincts told him something bad was about to happen. Everyone, raise your guard. Just then, sparse footsteps sounded out. The captain was startled. Why would this kind of creature appear inside the dungeon? Could the dungeon have changed somehow? The person beside him said in a low voice, "Captain, look carefully. It seems like that thing has something wrapped around it too." The captain immediately ordered, "I don't care what it's wrapped in. Kill them all." As soon as the words fell, several flaming arrows blasted toward the skeleton. But the skeleton merely raised its bone shield and blocked them easily. Fafnir, hidden in the dark, also took the chance to accelerate forward. The squad captain's eyes turned cold. "I don't care what you are, you're all going to die here." He hurled a fireball spell at Fafnir. But the next moment, a bone spike shot through the air in retaliation. The fireball was detonated directly in midair, and the attack was neutralized on the spot. The squad captain had not even seen what happened. He only felt as if the fireball had exploded by itself. And in that opening, Fafnir was already right in front of him. Pure undead power was compressed into the edge of his fist, and with one uppercut, the shockwave swept across everyone nearby. Fafnir said disdainfully, "They're even weaker than I imagined." At that moment, Ryoga slowly walked out from the rear. The squad captain shouted sharply, "Who exactly are you?" Ryoga replied flatly, "Just a passerby." The squad captain understood instantly. Both the Draconian and the skeleton were summons. As long as he killed this man, everything would end. He roared to the people behind him, "You pin down the Draconian with concentrated fire. I'll kill that man." The next moment, one member carrying a steel shield charged at Fafnir. Fafnir threw just one punch, and the steel shield was punched clean through on a spot. At the same time, the squad captain's fireball spell had already finished gathering, ready to blast Fafnir to death directly. On the other side, the rest of them also all rushed toward Ryoga at once. Fafnir warned in a low voice. Ryoga, they're treating you like an easy target. A swarm of ghosts swept out directly and dove into the enemy formation. They had no physical bodies, so they could not be blocked. The moment everyone was struck, their reaction speed plummeted, and their bodies felt as if they had been dragged into mud. Fafnir did not stop either. Bone spikes were already in his hand, ready to be fired at any moment. The bone spikes shot out in rapid succession, but were blocked one after another by the enemy. Even though they had been afflicted with fatigue, anyone active in a 3-star dungeon was no weakling, and bone spikes alone were no longer enough to kill them. Meanwhile, the skeleton beside them was forcibly shattered as well. Hearing the notification that his servant had been killed, Ryoga's gaze turned completely cold. It was time to get serious. The one who had shattered the skeleton charged toward Ryoga again. Ryoga cast bone control once more, reassembling the bones into a spear, and at the same time the opponent rushed at him. He raised his hand and called the spear into his palm. He was a mage, but close combat had never been a weakness of his. The next second, with an extremely fast slash, he directly took the attacker's life. This scene made the squad captain's scalp go numb. Since when could a mage fight like this? Ryoga smiled lightly. If you take me for a fragile mage, then you're absurdly mistaken. But the other side simply refused to believe that a priest could overpower them in close combat. The man immediately exploded in speed and tried to suppress Ryoga by force. Ryoga, however, used only a few simple swings to dismantle the entire offensive. The man's face was full of disbelief. How could a priest have this level of close-range combat? Ryoga's eyes carried pressure. Aren't you getting surprised a little too early? The man flew into humiliation and rage and lunged again, completely set ablaze by being looked down on. Bone spike hidden weapons shot out first, while Ryoga moved behind him at the same time. The man could only block the hidden weapons first, then slash backward in return. He poured most of his strength into that strike. Just as he wished, the bone spear shattered the moment it made contact. But despite breaking the weapon, the man's face turned pale. Because on Ryoga's body, a layer of dark purple armor had appeared at some point. Almost at the same time, Ryoga used the broken shaft of the spear to deliver a fatal strike and directly took his life. You thought you could really hit me? I only exposed that flaw on purpose. Fafnir, I'm done on my side. Why are you still so slow? Fafnir said flatly. He only knows how to hide behind his men. Once I kill all his subordinates, where else can he hide? The squad captain was terrified to the extreme. Why did fire do absolutely nothing to this lizard? Fafnir stepped out and rushed straight at him. The red spider members had almost no power to resist in front of him. A moment later, Fafnir had wiped out everyone. This one was fairly durable, to actually drag you down for this long. Ryoga then immediately used necromancy, and directly collected the squad captain's soul. This soul may be useful in the future. At least he was a fire attributability user. The corpse I'll keep too for now. Outside the dungeon, Madame Shuri had already been waiting for a long time. The red spider people inside were much weaker than I expected. I thought they'd be more troublesome. We need to withdraw first. Communications have been cut, so their reinforcements will arrive very soon. We'll follow your plan. Let's withdraw first. Madame Shuri added, the thing you wanted, I actually prepared it too. A moment later, back at the mall. Before handing it over, I'll test it once in front of you. If there are problems later, we won't be responsible for after-sales support. Ryoga could feel that it was rapidly absorbing the mana in the air. There's nothing wrong with it. It really does meet my requirements. But not covering after-sales service is too cold. In a chaotic world like this, being able to get it at all already makes you lucky. The scene shifted again. Seeing him return, Renya shouted excitedly, Ryoga, you came back safe. Of course I came back safe. Did you think something would happen to me? I knew nothing would happen to you, but the black market is too chaotic, so I still worried. Oh right, Renya, I brought you a gift. Ryoga raised his hand and released the soul. Renya was terrified on the spot. You brought me a gift, and the gift is a ghost. This soul may be useful to me later, so I let it out first for you to take a look. You keep it company for a while. I'm going back to sleep first. For some reason, Ryoga felt more exhausted than usual today, and after lying down, he quickly fell into a deep sleep. Suddenly, two prompt sounds rang out in his mind. When he awoke again, Ryoga found that he had arrived in an unfamiliar place. My contractor, you've finally come. Kronos, breaking into my dreams is not a good habit. Who told you this is a dream? I summoned you to the Star Sanctuary. The Pantheon is where the constellations gather, but the Star Sanctuary is the true territory of the constellations. I called you here today to give you a task. In order to increase your divinity, you must go challenge the Heavenly Giant. If you succeed, obtain a holy relic, and build a temple. Out of everything in that task, the simplest should be building a temple. Then let's start with building a temple.